of Biography of a Polymath. I'm your host, Jennifer Moore from Ghostwriting Galaxy, and I'm thrilled to have with us the extraordinary Dr. Christine Charyton. Dr. Charyton is a true polymath, someone who has made significant contributions across multiple fields, including psychology, neuroscience, and the arts. Her work is not only groundbreaking but also deeply inspiring. So, today we'll dive into her life, her work, and the lessons we can all learn from her. Dr. Charyton, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Let's start with a big question. Dr. Charyton, what does it mean to you to be called a polymath?
Yes, well, it was really interesting because I studied Ukraine and creativity and innovation among science and art. And what I found out is that a lot of the people that were Ukrainian were really polymaths. So,
Mm-hmm.
an example is Taras Shevchenko. He's a political activist, an artist, and a poet. So these are
Mm-hmm.
diverse fields. And it's not being a jack of all trades and master of none, it's actually mastering all these disciplines. So he was really a well established poet. And even my dad and I used to read his poetry together so I could practice my Ukrainian. And I
Mm-hmm.
would read it in the Ukrainian language with him. And then the artwork was amazing also in New York City. There was a gallery about his artwork and a special exhibit. And then being a political activist, he ended
Mm-hmm.
up going to a Russian prison because being Ukrainians, often these Russian people would confiscate them and put them in jail. And
Yeah.
he got out. He was so strong, he got out of a Russian prison and lived. Or, for example, in women's scientific creativity that contributes to
Yeah.
society, Katerina
Mm-hmm.
Yushchenko ended up dying in a Russian prison because, and she's the one that eventually actually developed a smartphone in the Soviet Union way before in the 1960s, way before a smartphone came with innovation to everybody. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just interesting that after looking at that and going through my biography, I realized I am a polymath myself. And I'm also Ukrainian American. So it's just interesting. And it doesn't mean that all polymaths have to be Ukrainian American or Ukrainian.
Yeah.
There are
Mm-hmm.
people like Da Vinci, that's well known as being a polymath, being an engineer and an artist. That was something that was uh, significant for him. So,
Yeah.
and he was exceptional in both of those. And Da Vinci would design like the ornithopter, which is essentially a helicopter before there was a such thing as a helicopter. So it's just having this vision and innovation and creativity and innovation and inventiveness have always been core principles of mine and very much strong interest. So and that was the thing that was really interesting is my mentor, eminent scholar Frank Farley, suggested I write an autobiography or biography. He said, "You really need to do this, Christine. You really need to do this. You're very talented." And actually, he's working on his right now as we speak. And
Okay.
I'm very encouraged and delighted to have the biography complete. And it really is a relief to have it complete.
That's fascinating. It's clear that your ability to connect different fields has been a driving force in your career, right? So, what inspired you to integrate psychology, neuroscience, and the art in your work?
Yes, well, I've always been fascinated by the brain and how it
Mm-hmm.
works. So
Yeah.
that's something that I've been interested in. And I had an appointment in the neurology department at Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center for 12 years. So first I started at the New York campus, the regional campus, then went to the main campus, and I was in psychology and neurology. So I just wanted to, I just wanted to integrate those areas. And then engineering was also a passion of mine from my dissertation, I looked at musicians and engineers and contrasted and compared those two. And actually, there were more similarities between them than you would expect. And even in my dissertation, the music students did just as well on, or even better on engineering design than the engineering students did at that time. So, so my tool, the creative engineering design assessment that I created with another psychologist that was also trained as an engineer, and the engineering department at Ohio State University, we worked on it together and used it as an educational tool to help increase creativity in their engineers. So, and I would always go over and give talks to the engineering department. Part of
Mm-hmm.
the exercises would be group mandalas. So I'd have everybody in the class do their own mandala. And I used a CD, like a musical CD, a blank one, so they could draw
Mm-hmm.
around it with pastels and then
Mm-hmm.
create their own mandala. And then we talk about the mandalas and I'd put them in groups because in engineering, part of the education is they're often in groups, groups of four. So that's
Yeah.
how they work together. So it was interesting, just my experience with creativity, that I could change the dynamic of how I would teach based on the needs of the classroom. So even when I taught creativity, the class was as small as 25, so it was very individualistic. And then I got it
Mm-hmm.
as large as 150. So I had to adapt and have the same lessons with 150 students. So I even had poetry readings in 150 students, and students would volunteer to read their poetry in front of the large group.
Perfect. So, your Ukrainian American heritage has also played a role in shaping your worldwide. So, could you share how it has influenced your career and perspectives?
Yes, well, first of all, food and religion are key principles of my upbringing, being Ukrainian
Mm-hmm.
American. So we'd always
Mm-hmm.
eat Ukrainian food, pirohet, holubchi, kolbasa, borscht. You know, we'd have all these foods. And then I go to church, and even now I go to a Ukrainian mass where it's entirely in Ukrainian. And I understand the mass very well in Ukrainian because I was brought up going to Ukrainian mass. So,
Yeah.
also, I advocated for Ukraine at the Ohio State House. I actually have a, a it's like a document from John Kasich when he was governor. So
Mm-hmm.
and there's rumor that he's actually, even though he was Croatian, his family emigrated and he was Lemko, which is like a village in Ukraine. And he was very supportive of our awareness and protests to help Ukraine. So he was very
Mm-hmm.
knowledgeable and helped Ukraine a lot. And then at on the government level, I actually wrote to President Trump in his first time around to give Ukraine javelin missiles, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote to
Okay.
President Biden to give military weapons to Ukraine, and he did. So
That's great.
I've constantly been promoting Ukraine as one independent sovereign nation, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the way the people want it to be, and that's the way it's wanted to be for years. So if you look at history, it's been conquered over since Genghis Khan way back.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody wants this land, and the land is black, rich, fertile soil. So
Yeah.
everybody, Europe wanted the land, Russia wanted the land. Now the United
Mm-hmm.
States of America wants the land for minerals. So, so I mean, Ukraine has a lot. I mean, people don't understand how rich the soil is, and that that's
Yeah.
giving up a lot of Ukrainians just for
Yes.
security. And
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine wants the security. That's all they want. All they're asking for is security because the Budapest Memorandum was supposed to help Ukraine. Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons for USA and Europe support, and then did not get that when Obama was in office, and Putin took over Crimea, and then now with the invasion. So I mean, I think there was more support now with Europe and the United States of America than there ever has been under Biden. And I think Trump is upset about all the funds, American taxpayer funds that have been given. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is that it's the balance. I think America needs to come first, definitely, but we
Definitely.
also have to save the world and make sure there's not a World War III. And I think by giving the
Mm-hmm.
weapons to Ukraine, that helps prevent a World War III, not create a World War III.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So, was there a defining moment in your journey when you realized the importance of an interdisciplinary approach?
Yes, well, I went to the National Science Foundation, and they
Mm-hmm.
are very much interested in interdisciplinary work. And
Mm-hmm.
they knew about my dissertation with music and engineering. And
Yeah.
one of the lead officials at the National Science Foundation, his son built organs, and he was an engineer. So he was
Okay.
intrigued by my interest in including engineering and creativity, and
Mm-hmm.
thought it was a profound, very important area. So I was invited to the National Science Foundation. So that was absolutely amazing and fabulous. So I knew there, based on my feedback from my dissertation, and again, eminent scholar Frank Farley said, Christine, you really need to create a measure or tool, because the one that you found, the Purdue Creativity Test from 1959, is out of date. You would be golden if you could create a new creativity test. So that's what I
Yeah.
did. I created a new
Mm-hmm.
creativity test. And then also, I was interested in temporal lobe epilepsy, that that music is observed in the temporal lobe, which is right here on both
Mm-hmm.
sides.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a study with the epilepsy monitoring unit, of having the patients put on headphones and listen to the music, have their eyes closed, relax, listen to the music. And then what we found is that the people with epilepsy synchronize to the music in their temporal lobe more than people without epilepsy. And that's actually the way musicians process music. And then when asking
Yeah.
questions about the music, the patients with epilepsy really like the music a lot. So, and that was something that we would ask also, is, did you like the music? And that music was John Coltrane, My Favorite Things, and Mozart Piano Sonata in D major for two pianos. And most people like the jazz music of John Coltrane better, which was really interesting when asking.
Okay, so bridging multiple fields must have come with its own set of challenges for you, right? So, what were some of the obstacles that you faced and how did you overcome that?
Yes, I think there was a lot of jealousy, because when
Oh,
I
yeah,
was at
definitely.
Newark, people were signing up for my research studies instead of their own.
Mm-hmm.
That somebody even took down the signs of my research studies in jealousy, because they didn't want people keeping on signing up for my research studies, which was unfair. So, um,
Definitely.
yeah, so that's what I found the biggest obstacle, is
Mm-hmm.
jealousy. Even in the
Yeah.
psychology department at the main campus, there was jealousy. So
I mean,
that,
that's everywhere.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So, that was the main obstacle for you.
Yes, that people would be jealous and try to put
Mm-hmm.
roadblocks for me. Like, for example, in the psychology department at Ohio State, at the main campus for 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
they took away
Mm-hmm.
my faculty card and gave me a graduate assistant card just to humiliate me, to try to make me feel bad. And they gave me a graduate assistant room instead of a faculty room. So I basically didn't care. I just kept on
Mm-hmm.
moving forward with my research, and until they had a graduate student take over my class and copied me completely. And I they forced me to leave all my materials, my tests that I created. I was very creative about the creativity tests, because most people would make them open-ended essays, where I found a way to
Mm-hmm.
objectively make true, false, multiple choice, and short answer. and that was my format. That I
Uh-huh.
learned at Temple University, where I had my PhD,
Mm-hmm.
and taught there during during my PhD studies as a teacher. Well, I was a professor, but I wasn't a professor. I was like um, an instructor. That's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. So I was an
Mm-hmm.
instructor. I wasn't even a TA. I was above a TA. I was an
Mm-hmm.
instructor, a teaching assistant. So I wasn't a teaching assistant. I was an instructor. So I would create my own tests based on my mentor that was a professor.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's dive deeper into your work. You have done
Okay.
groundbreaking research in cognitive neurology, right? What are some of the key discoveries that, excites you the most?
Right. The key discoveries, well, I mean, like I spoke about the creativity in engineering.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I found that really intrigued me is that my publisher showed me that I made a significant contribution to STEM for women.
Mm-hmm.
So now there are more women in engineering than ever before. And that my research greatly contributed to that by including gender studies in engineering. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that really stands out to change a whole field that I'm not even an
Exactly.
engineer, and I changed it. I changed the dynamic of it.
That's great. That's Dr. Charyton for you, everybody. That's incredible. One of the areas that you have explored in the connection between music and the brain function. What drew you to this connection and what have you learned from that connection?
Yes, well, I've learned that music of musicians is processed in the temporal lobe,
Mm-hmm.
especially even more than the average human being. Like music is observed in the temporal lobe, but
Yeah.
actually for musicians, it synchronizes in the temporal lobe. That's why, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, performing, it's almost like the entire band goes into the same kind of wavelength, literally, when they're performing
Yeah.
together. It's a very
Yeah.
special experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something I've learned from comparing the data of the epilepsy patients to musicians, and then also my work looking at John Coltrane. I ended up doing a statistical analysis that was non-linear analysis, which was fractal analysis. So what we did is we used a computer program called Humdrum and
Mm-hmm.
used a computer and notated every single note for two songs from 1959 to, well, actually no, from the beginning. I think it was from, I'd have to remember the years, I forget, but it's basically over like a 10-year period of two
Mm-hmm.
songs per year. And um and that was what we found is that um we we hypothesized that the music would be pink noise, that actually the music in the beginning would be pink noise and the music at the
Mm-hmm.
end would be brown noise, which is the frequency of 1 over f. So um, the frequency of pink noise is 1 over f to the first power. The frequency
Mm-hmm.
of brown noise is 1 over f to the second power. So that was what our hypothesis was. However, what we found is all of John Coltrane's music was actually brown noise, which meant it was all F to the 1 to the divided by F to the 2. See what I mean?
Okay.
So,
No, I don't.
yeah, okay, it's a mathematical calculation. But anyway, the bottom line is that it was brown noise and that
Yeah.
people like the brown noise just as much as anybody would like pink noise, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
So, and brown noise is predictable music. If you would look at brown noise, it's like dance music essentially. That would be brown
Okay.
noise. So,
Okay.
But that's what we found in this study. So we mathematically calculated the music. And then the next step was to look at the music in the brain.
Yeah. This is very very interesting.
Thank you.
And another fascinating area of your work is animal assisted therapy, right? What have you discovered about its impact on mental and emotional well-being?
Yes. Well, I found that people connect with the animals. So, for
Yeah.
example, what happened is I had a client that was very depressed and was
Mhm.
waiting for me in the waiting room and
Mhm.
petted my cat Volo in the waiting room in the barn. And I said, if you like, you can bring Volo into therapy with you. And
Mhm.
the client said, yes, that would make me feel so much better. And the client brought the cat into my office. And that was the beginning of animal assisted therapy. And then from there, it went with the horses because the horses
Uh
are in the
huh.
barn. And I
Mhm.
used the dog also for my clients. So
Okay.
it was just amazing. And my horses are Yosef and Ranger. And Ranger gives hugs and Yosef gives kisses. So
Oh, so cute.
I taught them to do that. And when my clients are comfortable with the animals and the horses,
Mhm.
I teach them to get how to give Ranger a hug. And
Mhm.
if they're comfortable with giving, I only had one client be able to give Joseph a kiss because he's a tricky horse. So, but I give them kisses all the time. I give Joseph
Oh,
kisses all the
that's
time, and I give Ranger hugs all the time.
that's so cute. I mean, yeah, definitely. Being animal around us is a big therapy. I would completely agree to this point. You've also highlighted the role of the arts in science, innovation, and healing. So, how do you see the arts contributing to these fields?
How do I see the arts and the sciences? So what do you
How do
mean?
you see the yeah how do you see the arts contributing to these fields, into the scientific innovation and healing?
Yes, I think that the arts, like by using the creative arts,
Uh-huh.
by using sketching, by using
Mm-hmm.
mandalas, like for example, I can show you this. Look at this. Isn't this beautiful?
It's very beautiful.
Yes. So,
Did you draw that?
there are people can use their creative expression for themselves and express themselves, and it can be better than words sometimes.
Yeah.
And that is like the science that I use is the cognitive behavioral therapy with mindfulness and positive psychology. So the cognitive behavioral therapy is to have specific goals from session to session. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, one might be to draw,
Mm-hmm.
to sketch.
Yeah.
That could be a goal. And then the mindfulness is to be in the moment with mindfulness breathing,
Mm-hmm.
breathing in relaxation, holding it, breathing out tension and stress. And
Mm-hmm.
then the positive psychology is kind of like looking for those silver linings, looking for the good in things, the appreciation, the gratitude, just like Pilgrimage: A Mindful Journey. I'm often
Yeah.
reminding my clients, read that book. It's helpful. It's helpful to change your
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
So I think that that's very important, that people can change their perspective in life by looking at the positive. It doesn't mean that you ignore the negative, but
Yeah.
you can change your mindset. So, and all of this is evidence-based medicine. That's where the
Mm-hmm.
science comes into it. So this is evidence-based. So animal assisted therapy is evidence-based.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, positive psychology is evidence-based. The art
Mm-hmm.
therapies are evidence-based.
Yeah.
So music therapy is evidence-based. So I
Definitely.
don't call myself a music therapist because they would be upset because I didn't go to music school for that. But I do use music as an individual psychologist with my clients to have them
Mm-hmm.
relate and share their music with me. I have a client that sings to me,
Oh,
that sings. So it's very meaningful
that,
to reach people with these arts, and it's all evidence based.
yeah.
That's
So,
where the science is.
completely understandable. Your work really shows the power of interdisciplinary thinking. What do you think that the world can gain from embracing this mindset?
So, how can people connect with interdisciplinary thinking? Are you thinking, is that what your
Yeah,
question? Okay.
yeah.
I think that if people think more broadly, that
Mm-hmm.
can help people in more depth.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I'm grateful and talented that I have a lot to offer as far as my gifts. So my last name Charyton in Ukrainian
Mm-hmm.
means Haraton, which means God gives you many gifts and it's up to you what you do with them. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful, I'm gifted that all these variations come to me so easily. But there are other
Mm-hmm.
psychologists and other practitioners that also are artistic and interested in these dimensions. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, at Ohio State University at the Wexner Medical Center, they would have an gallery every year to sell paintings that physicians would paint themselves. So there is that art science for even other people. And the person that was the neurologist that I worked on, Dr. Charlie Hall, he's an MD and a PhD, very smart guy.
Okay.
He's very interested in music and is supportive of that and my music and my interests. So
Mm-hmm.
he was the one that wanted to do the study in the epilepsy monitoring unit with me. And we collected 10 minutes of data per song. It was 10 minutes per song. And then he analyzed all of that with sophistication with a supercomputer essentially. I mean, he had to use a
Mm-hmm.
supercomputer for all that data. So he
Yeah.
significantly contributed to that study. And I think that's why we had press all over. I mean, we had press in the Huffington Post, Toronto Star. It was actually the Toronto Star that interviewed me, Fox News,
Okay.
Newsmax, WebMD. Everybody picked it up. It went viral. And it was amazing just to be able to think that a non-invasive measure like music can help epilepsy patients. I mean, why should
Yeah.
they get their brain cut and if they don't need to? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Beyond your research, you have also been a leader in various capacities, right? So, can you tell us more about your involvement uh, Whistlecuff Farms and how it connects to your broader mission?
Yes, well, oftentimes I have students that work for me at Veselka Farm, so it's teaching them about
Mm-hmm.
horse care and that connection, just like I teach my
Mm-hmm.
clients about that horse care and connection. So I teach them
Mm-hmm.
how to connect with the animal on a emotional level. So,
Okay.
and that they're not afraid of the animals. And that I teach them that if they are afraid of the animals, the horse will sense that, especially with the horses.
Yeah.
So I think that they learn to not be afraid and they learn to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that and connection. And it's a rare opportunity. I mean, I don't know of any other psychologist that has their own horses that can have their horses be therapy horses. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've already had my clients brush the horses with me. I've had
Okay.
I had a client want to give me lessons and uh ride with me even, and I said
Okay.
I can only have one hat at a time even though I have all these hats. I can't give you therapy on the horse. That's going to be too challenging. I mean, I thought about it and I thought I could teach them
Yeah.
mindfulness while they're on the horse, but that
Mhm.
would be a little much.
Yeah.
Because by the time you tack up, it takes probably about a half hour to an hour to tack up, and then riding about a half hour to an
Mhm.
hour, and then untacking.
Mhm.
It would just, in a typical, I can't bill insurance for that. A
Yeah.
typical,
That's yeah.
yeah, a typical counseling session is about an hour.
Mhm. So that's such a meaningful initiative that you take, right? What leadership lessons have you learned from your experiences in academia, research, and the community work that you do?
Yes, leadership. I learned that my mom told me I'm too nice. You know what I mean? That sometimes people will try to take advantage of me because I'm so nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to not be so sociable and friendly sometimes because I'm very friendly and sociable with everyone. And I love
Mm-hmm.
people and I love animals and I put people before animals, but I love them both very much. And
Yeah.
my best friend in Texas, she's a dog trainer and she puts her animals before people. She puts them even before her own children and her husband. So, but I
That's a
always
difficult
put
choice,
people
I
first.
must say.
Pardon?
That's a difficult choice to, choose
Yeah.
between people and animals. Yeah.
Yeah, so I always chose to put the people first. And then a lot of
Mm-hmm.
equestrians put the horses first, then over people. But I still put people first because I feel like I have to have that priority. So at my horse
Yeah.
farm at Veselka Farms, I teach people my number one thing is safety for you, the person.
Uh-huh.
Number two is
Uh-huh.
safety for the horse. And it's always
Yeah.
in that order. But safety is the number one priority.
Mm-hmm. So, can you share a success story where your work has had a direct impact on someone's life?
Yes, well, there were a few. For example, I had a client that had family dissonance,
Mm-hmm.
and I taught them a technique and I prayed for them, and they resolved the dissonance before the family member died and felt that it was a miracle. They considered what happened to them to be a complete miracle by the grace of God.
Mm-hmm.
So I taught them the technique. They were the ones that
Mm-hmm.
did it themselves, and they were the
Yeah.
ones that had the miracle by the grace of God.
That's so beautiful. So your ability to balance so many passions is like truly impressive, Christine. How do you maintain productivity across discipline?
Yes, I just keep on doing the work. For example, the next work is going to be called The Love Doctor, Mr. Happy, a new book coming out, and to
Okay.
just make sure everything's the finest work possible. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very tough on other people and I'm tough on myself most of all. I am a perfectionist, so I just try to make everything work and just keep on moving forward and making everything the
Yeah.
finest quality possible.
That's great. So, for young professionals who want to explore multiple fields but feel pressured to specialize, what advice would you give to them?
I'd say that they should keep their options open and
Mm-hmm.
they do need to specialize in at least one area. For example, I specialized in psychology. I'm a
Yeah.
psychologist and I'm a licensed psychologist. I'm a practicing psychologist. So some
Mm-hmm.
people get their PhDs in psychology, but they are not a
Mm-hmm.
practicing psychologist. They could be
Yeah.
in cognitive psychology or they could be in social psychology, and they're not a practicing psychologist. So I think that's something that I specialize in so I could do these other options. So I'd advise them to specialize in one area and then branch
Mm-hmm.
out and to keep their hobbies as part of their career. That's what I did. I have music as a hobby. I have equestrian
Mm-hmm.
sports as a hobby. So my music is up on Apple, iTunes,
Mm-hmm.
iHeartRadio,
Mm-hmm.
Spotify, and that's under just Christine Charyton. And my music's up there, and I have 6 CDs up there that are
Oh,
available,
that's
so people can listen to that. And then I
yeah.
have my horse farm, Veselka Farms, is essentially a business. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I've created this niche with animal assisted therapy. I don't know of anybody that has used cats in therapy before. So it just happens spontaneously. That's why I don't
Uh-huh.
call it equestrian or equine therapy. Most people call it
Yeah.
equine therapy with horses. I call it animal
Mm-hmm.
assisted therapy because the cats are part of it, the dogs are part of
Mm-hmm.
it, the horses are part of it. So that's how I coined that term.
That's great. So, as we near the end of our conversation, I would love to hear about your book, Biography of a Polymath. What do you hope that the readers take away from it?
I hope the readers take away that it's a journey. It's about a journey
Mm-hmm.
of Dr. Christine Charyton, where she
Yeah.
starts in college
Mm-hmm.
and where she finishes and her future direction, and the hopes of adapting to technology and space travel in the future. So I think that that's where that book goes, and I think that the self through the self discovery, it started just
Mm-hmm.
as a biography. However,
Yeah.
by exploring the dimensions of Dr. Christine Charyton, she realizes that she's really a polymath. And a polymath
Mm-hmm.
is an expert in more than one domain or more than one area or more than one
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
So, just like Taras Shevchenko that we talked about earlier, being an expert
Mm-hmm.
in more than one area. So, I think that that's an important component of the exploration of Dr. Christine Charyton as a person, as a helper, as a healer,
Mm-hmm.
as an educator. All of those, it's all that of her path.
I'm pretty sure that the readers are going to take this away. So, are there areas of research or innovation that you're currently exploring or you're excited about?
Yes, the Love Doctor, Mr. Happy. That's the one I'm
Uh-huh.
most interested about. Getting that framed. I made the outline for that, putting the
Mm-hmm.
pieces together. A lot of it, it's very dynamic, and it's all based on it's all nonfiction. It's based on
Uh-huh.
fact. It's all fact,
Okay.
really.
Okay.
So I think it's a beautiful love story. Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Happy did not want a romance story, and I did not want a romance story. We wanted a love story. So that's why
Okay.
it's so vital that it's a love story between two individuals, a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And
that's
the woman's
great.
the love doctor.
Okay. So, looking back, what do you see as your most enduring contribution to psychology, neuroscience, and creativity?
Interesting. I'd say the creative engineering design assessment is one of those
Uh-huh.
because
Uh-huh.
it's actually a tool that can be used in education to help students be more creative. It can be used in military, in the Air Force, and in NASA. So it has a lot
Mm-hmm.
of real world applications. I'd say the epilepsy and music is a key component also,
Uh-huh.
because a music can be used measurably to help. Even one of the things we found as an after effect in the epilepsy monitoring unit is that it actually
Mm-hmm.
prevented seizures from happening. So it could actually stop a seizure besides the synchronization in the temporal lobe. And then
Mm-hmm.
also, I'd say the third is that about women in STEM, that I significantly
Yeah.
contributed to women in engineering. And that was brilliant.
Yeah.
I just by asking that question, what about men and women? Why just put all the men together? just like, in my study with the epilepsy monitoring unit, we had
Mm-hmm.
men and women and we had ethnic diversity. But when the medical center gave us the data back, they were all right-handed white men, which was not what I was looking for. I wanted to have the diversity. So
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
frustration. So,
Yeah.
but that was something I always looked at, is gender and ethnicity. And usually
Mm-hmm.
we found that there was no differences in ethnicity. But one of the studies
Exactly.
that was very interesting is by asking students to list, they had to list their top 10 creative people. And the top three were white men, and they were people like Einstein, Da Vinci, I forget who the third was. I know Bill Gates was on there. Elon Musk wasn't on there at that time, because it was
Mm-hmm.
early on. And Steve Jobs was on the list.
Yeah.
But the women would pick people in popular culture that were singers. Oprah
Uh-huh.
Winfrey was one of the people on there. So there was more ethnic diversity, and women would choose other women as models also,
Mm-hmm.
but still based on everyone's top three.
Yeah.
And the top three were also scientists. So Da Vinci was really a scientist as well as an artist. So
Mm-hmm.
that was something that was unique about that. So just by looking at that gender study, that brought light
Yeah.
to how women and men look at role models differently, and that women
Mm-hmm.
also look for women role models. And then also from my literature, and research, that women need women role models. And that's what I
Yeah.
aspire to be, as a woman role model to girls. That's why I think women's
Mm-hmm.
scientific creativity that contributes to society, middle school
Yeah.
girls can read it and should read it to become interested in science, and that would mean a lot to me.
Definitely. So, how can people integrate your insights into their daily lives to enhance their creativity and their well-being?
Yes, creativity is a muscle. So the more
Yeah.
you use it, the more you are creative. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I say. And everybody can be creative. It's not that
Exactly.
certain people are just born that way.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can be creative, and it's a muscle
Mm-hmm.
you have to practice. And I'm very blessed. I probably was born creative, but I still believe that
Yeah.
people, anybody can be creative, and it can be
Definitely.
learned. It's learned
Yes.
behavior, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
muscle that needs to be exercised.
Perfect. So, finally, where can our readers find your book and how can they connect with you to learn more?
Yes, you can find my books on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, KDM, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
also.
Yeah.
I've even seen other booksellers sell my books,
Mm-hmm.
Half Price Books and other booksellers. And I would go and get the books. I think there have been some price droppings. So
Okay.
I've heard that the goal is women's scientific creativity is only going to cost $25. So
Mm-hmm.
that will lower the price of the books to be more
Okay.
accessible for people that can't afford books. The ebook
Mm-hmm.
for women's scientific creativity that contributes to society is only $3. Chrissy's
Okay.
Diary is only $3.99.
Mm-hmm.
Pilgrimage: A Mindful Journey is only $25 for the soft cover, and $5 for the ebook. There are
Uh-huh.
audiobooks for women's scientific creativity that contributes to society. There's also an ebook of uh, the biography of a polymath. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
audiobook for the biography of a polymath. There's the ebook,
Okay.
all of that.
Uh-huh. Okay, perfect. So you are covering all the areas. You're not
Yes,
leaving
yes.
anything. You want Christine Charyton to be everywhere, and definitely you're going to be everywhere. So,
Thank you.
Dr. Chariton, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Your work is a testament to the power of interdisciplinary thinking, and I know that our listeners will walk away inspired to embrace their own polymathic potential. So for everyone listening, you can find Biography of a Polymath at KDP, and you can connect with Dr. Christine Charyton at your website as well, right?
Yes, at DRDR and then CHARYTON on
Uh-huh.
X.
Perfect. So thank you again, Dr. Cheriton, and thank you to our audience for tuning in. And until next time, this is Jennifer Moore from Ghostwriting Galaxy signing off. Thank you so much, Dr. Cheriton, for your time and for this incredible conversation.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was great talking with you.
Same here. You take care of yourself,
Okay,
okay?
thank you. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.